Look at this, we've got a mint in box National WVP-A2 in video camera, new Vicon tube. Look at this, it comes in the box, the actual box that it would have been shipped in originally, and we're going to take it apart. It comes with all the bits, the cable, and microphone. That one's still got foam that is existing, which is pretty good for something that was delivered in October 1986. Most of them just turned to mush. There you go, look at that. All turning to sticky, gross mess. That's all you get. So it's a video camera, handheld. There's no recording device on this. There isn't even a power source on this. It's just a video camera. With mildew growing on the lens, of course. Viewfinder. Nice. I think it's a 1-inch CRT viewfinder. Title card, which I think was an optional thing. It plugs into there. And then yeah, this cable is what you use to connect up to your VCR, portable VCR for recording. I'm going to take apart this one. This one's all nice. We'll put that back and we'll look at the one that we're actually going to take apart. I just got this out because it's got the title thingy on it, which the other one doesn't. I'm not going to be too precious about this one because I think I've got about 5 of them, at least 5 of them. So here's the one we're going to deal with today. Again, it's still got working foam. That's amazing. Spider webs, lots of dust on it. That's all turned to sticky mess. You can see the little connector that the title card being plugged into. So what does this go to? How do you use this thing? Well, typically you'd connect it up to your portable VCR like this one. Portable VCR, National NV180. Since this is the PAL camera, we might as well use a PAL VCR with it. It's got a camera plug on the side. Camera socket? Camera connector. Yeah, so 10-pin camera connector. It's fairly standardized except for Sony, because of course Sony wants to do their own thing and not be compatible with anyone else. But yeah, the other brands, JVC, Sharp, Akai, Hitachi, Mitsubishi, all use this 10-pin camera connector for connecting between video cameras and VCRs until that time that the camcorder came along, a camera and recorder in one unit. But that's not the only way you can use these cameras. You can get a power supply. Here is one such device. A power supply. So it's got a transformer in there. It's got the camera connector on the front. Connect the camera up, and it's got 2 cables coming out of it. One of them for power. I don't know why they use such a big thick power cable. It just barely draws any power. This is a 120 volt one, 19 watts apparently. Here's a national one. You can see the cable coming out, that one is a bit thicker, which is interesting, but the power cable is what you would expect it to be. Although this one's got that weird thing. I don't know what it had originally. Someone must have chopped it off and put this on, which is an exciting tap-on style plug for in Australia, New Zealand, and now China. This one's 13 watts, 220 volt input. And the thing that makes this a little bit different, other than different rating and not having a metal, I'm guessing this is grounded through to ground your camera. Is that something that you needed to do in certain regions, which they don't care about there? This one's got an additional connector, now gone to the more standard colors, yellow for video, red and white for audio left and right, so it can pick up from stereo cameras, which I think this is a stereo camera. does say stereo left, right there for external mics, or the internal mic, which is presumably stereo. Not sure about that. Yeah, so you get your left and right output. But that's not all. Got other brands made these too. Got here a Victor one, Japan Victor Company JVC. So this is Japan market model, non-grounded, of course. It's Japan, don't need ground. Really nice little plug, look at that. That's the good stuff right there. So this is a, being Japan, 100 volt, 50 or 60 hertz, because it depends where you are. 25 VA, 13 volts, 0.7 amps output. Looks like there is provisional for an international version where they put a voltage selector there. It also looks like these ones had somewhat provision for that with some removable tab thing. Okay, so this one, it has a round cable coming out, not a flat one like what these ones have, the National Panasonic ones. And someone's already had a go at this. Unfortunately, it just peels out into individual bits. Presumably this did have a BNC connector for the video output, but someone's chopped the right channel audio off and twisted the wires onto the video one, guessing because they didn't have an input that BNC. I assume that's what's happened. Bit sad because it's defaced this nice unit. Similarly, there's a remote, although this one is in 3.5mm phono jack, not 2.5mm like the National and Panasonic ones have. Pretty sure they both have that, yeah. Yeah, so something you got to be very careful with. If you're using Japanese appliances outside of Japan, you must still power them from 100 volts. You can't join them up to a 110, 120 volt supply, because things like this with a transformer in them are going to saturate and then burn out. Might not be immediately, but a very high risk of that happening. So you need to use a proper 100 volt supply to run Japanese equipment. So for today, we'll try out this camera, just see if it works. We'll plug this one in since they've got and very old school LED. That's going to be coming out to this. And I didn't turn on any of my stuff for checking video outputs because for some reason I didn't think we're doing that, but we are. One thing I wondered, why does or did National, Panasonic, Matsushita, etc. use such ugly moldings on the connectors? Always the RCA plugs like this. They had this weird kind of very minimal, I don't know, basic rounded ugly looking thing on them, whereas other manufacturers were using so much nicer things. Like this JVC one that we were just looking at. Much more fancy, stylish, nice looking molding on the RCA plugs. And even the power cables. Now the Victor one, Hirakawa brand. Whereas if you look at an equivalent National brand power cable, it just has a kind of weird ugliness to it. Maybe that's just me. The Sony ones are also really nice, like this. Real professional quality stuff. Anyway, the other thing that is quite strange, that just realizing something, is on these VCRs, it's not what I've realized, so they have a mic in and an audio out. There's no line in for audio, but they come with this cable, which is the line in audio adapter. So you plug that into the mic input, you plug that into the audio output, and then it gives you here a line in and a line out. So that's just straight through, but I think it picks up the extra ground from that to avoid noise, or maybe it's just to balance the length of the cables out. And then there's an attenuator in here so that it attenuates the line level audio signal down to a microphone level so it can go into there. And what I just noticed as I got this thing is, no, I thought it was the same molding as on these. It isn't. similar. But yeah, I don't know who made these for National Panasonic, but much nicer molding, gives a much more quality feel than these quite cheap feeling connectors. Anyway, none of that matters at all because no one cares about that stuff except me. But what we're going to do is try turn on the camera and see if it does anything. The video connector here, we need a joiner. So we'll use that to make it into an RCA plug. Plug the video end into there. Now there's a standby on switch here, which I think that means in standby it probably keeps the heater on in the pickup tube and the viewfinder, so it's ready to go. Not sure, some cameras had multiple levels of standby. Maybe we should assess that. Let's unplug that and get the trusty this thing. But now we need a short extension cord so we can bring it close enough. Find one of those. This good one. Nice Panasonic extension cable. Now we're going to do a dodgy thing because we're going to be disc grounding this. Oh well. This good plug here, nice. This is just the normal extension cord socket that you get in Japan. So you can just plug into things like that, no worries. Okay, so the transformer in here just sitting idling, 2.9 watts. We've got the camera set on standby. Let's see if that goes up when we plug it in. It'll tell us whether the heaters are doing anything or not. Oh, look at that. It did, about 2 watts. Doesn't necessarily tell us that the heaters are doing anything, but it means something's doing something even though the camera's not officially on. Oh, maybe it's just what lights that up. Could be. Old style LED probably uses a watt. Let's turn this on, and it's long lost its lens cap. So this is the A2 model, and there's an A1 model. Perhaps we'll look at that next time, maybe. Difference between the A1 and A2. A2 has autofocus. I think that all that means is there's more stuff added on the bottom and everything else will be the same, but we'll find that out when we take a look at the A2. Let's turn this on. I mean, when we take a look at the A1, we'll find out. Wow, look at that. Starts up almost immediately because, yeah, that's the benefit of having the heater on. So it must have had a heater on. Anyway, we're too close to, yeah, minimum focus distance on this is pretty crazy. Like 1 meter, 3.5 feet. So you need to get pretty far away, or you got to use the macro function on the lens to do close-up focusing. You can see the color is beautiful on this. But that's because it's manual white balance. You don't get auto white balance back in the day. So you choose whether you're inside or outside, sun or light bulb. I think that puts a filter in front of the lens somewhere in the imaging path, so we're inside. And then there's a balance knob, and there's a button, and I think you pointed at something white. Yeah, so you pointed at something white that's illuminated by the lights in the area, and then you push this button, or hold it in, and it will do a white balance for you. And if it's still no good, then you can turn this knob and it will like offset it. You also get an iris control, so you can stop it down or open it up, override the auto iris, and there's a fade, an auto gain control, I guess. Maybe that makes it better in really dark places. Maybe. It looks like it. So in that dark place, without it, it's dark, and when you turn it on, it gains up a bit. There's a fade. Does that work? Maybe that only happens when you press start, stop. Not sure about that. And there's autofocus, which isn't going to do much here because it kind of works. What a great little thing. And we've got a viewfinder, which does work. It's just, yeah, the camera isn't locked onto the refresh rate of that. It says back up in the viewfinder, which possibly means that there's a backup battery somewhere. I guess it's for storing the titles or the date and time. There you go, there's the fade. So now it's in record mode according to what it says in the corner there. So there must be a character generator in this. Oh, it says in on the screen, which means indoors, I think. Yeah, that means outdoors. So for recording, press fade. A little F comes up on the screen, and then when we hit the button to stop recording, it'll fade out, and then go to not recording, presumably. No, it's still flashing recording. Maybe the thing that times the fade is not very good. Yeah, not sure. Anyway, there's a camera. Still in good working order. Let's take it apart and see what's inside. Oh, we didn't even look at how much power it uses when it's on. Well, you probably did, I didn't notice. 8 watts, exactly. Although, as we saw, a couple of that is used by the transformers, warming up its laminations. It says 4.7 watts on here. Yeah, measuring such a low value will always have some inaccuracies, and we have the losses of the transformer. But yeah, it does keep the heaters warm. The filaments glowing, heaters warm for instant power on. Nice feature. Alright, so the cable's removable. Not really sure why that is. Not all cameras have a removable cable, and if they do, it's always a different connector. A couple of different ones in the national Panasonic range used this connector. Others used a different connector, and then other brands like JVC, which I guess we'll eventually get to their cameras, used different connectors again. Various types of DIN type connectors or bigger versions of this. Yay for standardization. Now the viewfinder turns on this, but it's not removable. That I know, obviously there's no cables there. They go down inside. The microphone is removable, as we saw from that other one. Now there's quite a large screw thread there, which I wonder, that's probably something used to tilt the handle part. Let's find out. Not sure, I can't remember what this does. Looks like you're supposed to use a coin for that. Ah no, look, there's the battery. Ah yeah, that's a bit gross, isn't it? I guess that's what it means about backup. That's quite juicy. Perhaps we'll leave that shut and we'll just throw this out at the end, because I do not want to get gross battery stuff everywhere. Yeah, there's a backup battery in the handle. Be aware. I don't think I've ever opened that on one of these. Guessing most of it's going to be a number 1 JIS. Looks like it. So I think this back part will slide off as one unit. I didn't look for a service manual. I don't have a service manual for this one in paper form. I have got for some of the other cameras. Look at that. Back piece comes off in one piece. Shielding. Some boards that are just held together by clips, or held shut by clips. So it just opens up nicely. That's exciting. Now what comes off? I think you take this off. There's a little hook thing there. Doesn't go from that, but that screw there was in the center of this. So I'm guessing there's 2 halves to this part. Yeah, we'll take this apart quite deeply since I've got a bunch of these cameras. Doesn't really matter if we lose one of them. Guess it was a pretty popular model since it was, a lot of them around. And I've got quite a lot of cameras, so like VCRs, we'll be going through them in due course. Oh, there's quite a lot of stuff inside the handle, and oh, look at that. The battery is making its presence known throughout. That's unfortunate. Yes, I guess if you got one of these, check if it's got a battery in it and what damage it has done already. Maybe that means I need to find my other ones and pull out the batteries. Although it's too late, it's already spread throughout the system. That's just a little add-on thing. I guess that's similar to the, like the non-focusing version probably has something else there. Non-autofocus version. Yeah, this is back in the days when you had to do most of it yourself. Autofocusing was a luxury. Auto white balance was a luxury. You had to just do that yourself most of the time. Just kind of difficult on a black and white viewfinder if you've got nothing else there to reference. But yeah, if you've got a white card, you can point it at that and it will generally see you right. I'm not sure what's holding this together now. Don't know, maybe these go into something. Everything feels sticky. I think it might just be this handle part. That kind of fabric stuff has gone really gross. Yeah, that might do something with how long that was. I know we did take apart one of these just to look at the viewfinder in a previous video. That was quite a long time ago. I think because comparing it to a Sony one maybe, to see if they use the same model CRT in it. Okay, so some of that, there's a connector that can disconnect some of this, but not all of it. And interesting, the corrosion is in these connectors. There's corrosion on several of the pins in the connectors. Maybe we should get that off. Looks like that cable there is the majority of the wires. And the color coding is different on these, so if you unplug them, you wouldn't necessarily know which one goes where. I guess in this case we can work them out by which pin is corroded. Alright, in that case, let's see if we can take apart the viewfinder and see if that will give us something more to undo. Ah, yeah, that pulls out, doesn't it? And then that will unscrew that part there. That will help it separate, along with that screw there. So these VCRs, the VCR, the NV180, has a serial data protocol used for the remote control and the buttons on the front panel, and here there's play, review, slow, cue buttons here, and a play, record, switch, and that will send commands to the VCR through the cable to control the VCR. So you don't have to keep reaching down for the VCR, you can control it from the camera. So there's our nice viewfinder. Hopefully that unplugs. No, it doesn't unplug from that end, it unplugs from here. Oh, it unplugs by 2 wires. Sometimes it's there's a screw going in there, maybe that's what we need. What have I forgotten? Forgot, not remembered, not done. Oh, there's one on the bottom, but that's starting to lift off. Feel like there's more to it. Oh, look, there's some there. There is a screw. Oh, there's one on both sides there. Okay. That's going to help separate this up. That's probably the key one that I hadn't noticed. Yeah, they've made noise. Now there's that white plug there. I don't know what that goes to. I think it's those buttons. Then there's 2 shielded cables, which must go to those microphone connectors. They come all the way down from the bottom. Oh yeah, there's wire, I think it's the one that's left, which has got various shielded cables in it, and some what looks like ground with green. I think that must go to that connector there. I wonder what's holding that together. So it didn't look like that would come off. This has something else to do to it. Push it further, do something to it. Maybe under that is a screw? Ah, maybe that metal plate there seems to be part of the viewfinder. Really don't know what is holding it. I guess it's a clip of some sort, but I don't know where it is. Oh look, that came out now. Weird. Oh, that was a screw from the end in. Does that mean now if we undo this screw, it will come apart? It's quite elusive. Yeah, it felt something. No, it's still not. That dislodged all the audio, like microphone inputs. Yeah, so I guess that is a stereo input on the one plug, or you can have two for left and right as individual inputs. Yeah, undo all the wires and just pull this over the top. I'm going to cut cable ties. Pull that off. Still don't know what's holding this thing together. Ah, it seems like that plastic bracket. I don't know what you have to do to move it. Maybe you just pull on it. Oh, maybe it's just... Yeah, this is easy. Look, that just slides out. That's what you need to do. Yeah, see, get that and just yoink it out. That's why it has that ring on there. See, it's like a staple. So now that's pulled out, then this just falls off, this falls apart. Okay, there you go. That's the key. That's why it's got a little tiny hole there. You just pull on it and it will slide out from in there, pretty much. Okay, so there's a little control board. Buttons, switches, LED, bicolor LED, and quite nice feeling buttons. And some little pots. Variable resistors. Potentiometers. Okay, so one of those corroded plugs goes to that, which is the iris servo motor thing. And the other one, presumably, would go to the zoom motor and the focus motor. Maybe just the zoom motor. Zoom motor and something else. Maybe both, I don't know. Now, in order to get this handle part out of the way, we need to undo more cables. There's a ground wire going into there, all the way from over here, which seems to be a grounding point. Main grounding point. Several cables, look at that. Also this grounding wire from just some part of the circuit board over to the shield of this part. Yeah, maybe there was fine tuning with various interferences were being caused, so various groundings had to be implemented. It'd be pretty difficult to design this right on the first time. Or design it and get everything perfect on the first try. Okay, so that unplugs from there. There's that, which is probably a video out. Okay, now that's separated. I don't know if we should look at this now or later. It's going to be dirty and gross in there. Zoom control pushes some buttons in there. Pushes all the right buttons. The chord switch. Ah, no wonder that was quite difficult, because I noticed it didn't detect the record pause switch very easily, probably because it's full of corrosion. And it also explains what those like end-on soldered in boards are. It's what these buttons are mounted to. Now the problem is that is all corroded out, so it's going to make my screwdriver nasty. And that one's not corroded on the top, but it's still corroded further down. So this whole thing's a bit of a write-off. I wonder if that's some kind of power supply part. That board is very unhappy. So it looks like the parts from the VCR connector, camera connector, those, which is probably the stereo audio there and some control signals, the video, and then there's a couple of other wires, two thicker ones for power. Oh, there's also the standby on switch, which should be connected somehow. Let's undo those little screws on the end and see what comes out of this end. Oh, the switch is quite complicated. Okay. So quite a lot of wires are involved in the switch, look at that. like 6 wires. Okay, so the 2 that went to that board are from the switch. Everything else, except for those power ones. Okay, so here's the back of the connector, camera connector. That looks good. Got away fairly unscathed. So power there on those thicker red and black wires. Then the video and audio shielded wires, and they have 3 wires for control signals, like the start, stop, and the serial data lines. I think which goes in both directions because it will tell you the status of the VCR on the screen, the viewfinder screen, with little text, and then a standby switch. Oh, it's a double pole, double throw switch, so that has 6 wires involved, probably because it reconfigures stuff to go into the standby state and leave the heaters running. And that is a mushy mess of corroded stuff, which appears to have some kind of power supply in it. As you can see, the fairly thick traces there from that 2-pin connector, which is the power input, goes straight into that. So this board, that module thing, probably generates the various supply voltages that are used for running things in the camera. Quite a lot of wires going to it. And then the zoom motor control is also on here. And there's various op-amp looking things or comparators. Maybe that does voltage level detection. Pretty good, but just be careful because it's all sticky and corroded. Now, what have we got left on this thing? Alright, we'll take a look at the viewfinder next. Then we'll finish off by getting stuck into that. So this is a nice little CRT monitor, which we're going to have to get that off in order to see. The little flyback transformer there, have an integrated voltage doubler thing on it, diode and stuff. That ring you screw down against the housing to stop it from turning once you've got it in position, and it also holds everything together. Now this should pop open. Reveals a nice little mirror, which is silver side out so that you get a proper reflection without any ghosting. And then look at that, a lovely little CRT. Oh no, the label of it was stuck down to that foam stuff and ripped it off. And also the grounding of it is handled by the housing. Oh, that's sad, isn't it? Just the tip, only for a sec, the tip of the label was stuck on that foam. So it's a Matsushita brand CRT. It's got one of their part numbers. There'll be an equivalence listed somewhere. M03GBX8W Matsushita, made in Japan. Deflection coils on there, connector at the end. Small tube to have a anode connection on the side. Nice flat front, really clean and good. There's good high quality tubes there. You've got massive distance between the gun and the front of the phosphors, so you get a nice precise image there. And since it's not color, you get effectively infinite resolution up to the bandwidth of your signal processing, because there's no individual phosphor dots, it's just one continuous sheet, so it's up to you to light it precisely and you'll get a really nice sharp clear image. Great little unit. Anyway, look at this great little unit. So you can see the pickup tube is in there, and it will have a little wire that comes off the target, which will be in that box there. It goes to this initial preamp stage, which also seems to be involved in the deflection. Oh no, the initial preamp is in that box, and it's not related to that board, but its signal comes out here. I think this is all the video processing on this board here, and there's probably timing and power supplies. On this side you can see the high voltage wires, nice silicone insulation, high voltage resistor thingies. Maybe we shouldn't be touching it when it's just been run. There's some custom Matsushita ICs there. Early double-sided board with surface mount parts on both sides, through-hole plating, even proper through-hole plating. You don't see that much in this old equipment. Now, I wanted to find out a couple of things. What was all this about? Oh, I know what this is all about. So one wire was the iris servo, which turns that. The other 4-pin connector was the zoom motor, which would be that thing there. And this red and black one, I expect is just a power supply to the auto-focusing circuit, which will all be self-contained in there and just turned on and off by that switch there. I suspect that's what it is, and that wire there is probably just comes from that switch. Probably. Let's see. So I'm going to keep some of this hanging around, and we'll take a look inside an A1 camera next, if I remember that's what I'm doing, and then we'll see what stuff it did or didn't have. Is it just exactly the same? It just lacks the focusing bits on the bottom? I guess that would make sense, because they just manufacture one set of stuff and then just don't fit some of it in the cheaper non-autofocus model. Yeah, that is right. Look at that. So that title connector, and then this little board of controls here, the end one which was focus, on, off, or pulse on. It just joins these two wires together, which should go up through the hole, around here, and down into the autofocusing assembly. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just power for the autofocus, and then an on-off for the autofocus, and otherwise it has no interaction with the rest of the camera. Oh, look at that cunning. Some screws are black coloured so that you can't see them. This bottom chassis part. Okay, let's undo all of the things. Well, we can't undo all of the things because the high voltage into the tube does not undo. Yeah, so the deflection in the pickup tube, because it's like a reverse CRT, it's still got an electron beam firing out towards a thing, and then deflection coils to cause it to scan, and then what it's doing is exciting a coating on the light. A light sensitive coating on the surface gets struck by the electrons, and that causes it to turn the light level that's striking it in that point into a voltage level which comes off from the front edge of the tube and it gets amplified significantly. I have to lose that little ground wire, and then some cunning circuits and various things are used to turn that into a color video signal. Let's see what we can find under here. Someone had a go at that, it looks like it. That screw's a bit reamed out. Interesting. Alright, take this little cover off. Oh, now we're right into the business. See right there, it's a little tiny wire. A bit of wire comes off of the tube. So that's the signal where it comes off of the front. Deflection coils plug in there. So this must be deflection circuit amplifier maybe? A whole bunch of stuff held on by one screw. Deflection board. We're just looking at these caps to see if any of them are starting to leak. They look alright. They're probably a bit dried out though. Double-sided. Quite a lot of surface mount parts on the back. And semiconductor devices as well. Some things that are probably op-amps, various transistors, a bunch of variable resistors. Ah, look, there's a little, probably the output transformer there to drive one of the deflections. And it's probably using one of these little tiny ones for the other one. And now, the initial amplifier of the signal comes in there through an inductor or choke. Then, yeah, a bunch of capacitors. And on the other side, some probably very fancy little transistors to do a few stages of amplification. Is that a useful thing to keep? Do some kind of very precision signal amplification? Don't know. Well, there's plenty of them floating around on eBay if that is the case and you want some. Okay, so that comes off as an assembly, so the lens could be separated from the pickup part. Main boards. What was in this shielded box? Maybe some good processing stuff. Oh, look at that. There's a ROM. Is that a ROM? Maybe that's a character ROM. I didn't expect to see that. in MN6066. Like it could be a CPU, whole CPU in there. Or was it just a bare ROM? There's quite a lot of this stuff going on. Well, I guess we can use the microscope to look at that. Should we hook up the real microscope? We haven't done that for a long time. Rather than just using this, we can have a look in there. Or we come to a point where phones are just good enough. I don't know, that looks like a bit more stuff going on than just a ROM, doesn't it? We've got this good thing. Haven't touched this for a while. We need to find an SDI capable thing. Power. Is it one of those ones that just decides to not connect sometimes? I think so. Bend its little pin things in there in a bit and they'll see. Oh, look at that, there you go. And then there's video signal. HD SDI. Now let's see if we can get something interesting happening here. You're just thinking that I can hold it still enough. You're right. There you go. Look at that. What is that? Is that a ROM or is that more stuff? Is that more than a ROM? I don't really know much about investigating dyes, but that is a pretty interesting looking thing there. I don't think that's a ROM. More than ROM. Amazing. What an interesting find. Okay, there you go. That's some kind of ROM looking thing that I don't really know what it is, but it's interesting. I've got to play with the microscope thingy that I haven't touched for a long time, so that's good. Okay, so that's just clipped down to that bracket. Bottom of the camera. There's a little switch on the bottom which is run plus minus. So that, and that actuates that switch there, which decides whether the record pause signal is positive or negative. Because some brand of VCRs did it round the other way, even though they use the same connector. Shielding part soldered on, exposed copper there. It's like a primitive form of flexible PCB. Pretty good. We'll keep this out so we can look at the A1 camera and see if it's any different. We've got the yoke assembly. We're pulling this fully apart. I guess so. Peel this off. Oh, nice copper tape and copper strip inside there. Oh, it's all stuck down. More layers of copper. Ah, look at that. Bias light. That's what that is, isn't it? We talked about that stuff in an earlier video when we took apart a camera. But yeah, there's some little red LEDs there which shine in and bias it. Get it almost conducting. Better low light performance. Now, presumably, if I undo that screw, we can slide the tube out. But we might have to unhook that. Ah, look at that. An IR filter that is not ruined. That's amazing. They usually crusted over, gone all kind of white and gross looking. Now, you can see there the front of the pickup tube. And how interesting that is, because that's got on it like a special pattern of colored dot things for detecting color. Inside that is the deflection coils. Be pretty similar to what we see on the viewfinder CRT. And there's the tube, pickup tube. Matsushita S4161P. We've got a getter to remove any oxygen from it. Pickup tube, kind of like a reverse CRT, sort of. Well, it's the electron gun end of it with focus and acceleration bits and pieces along the way. You can see various contacts come up and then transition to wires, and then it goes through these sleeves, white sleeves, to insulate them till they get to the bit that they need to connect to. That one's just a stabilizer thing. What a neat unit. Okay, final bit. We'll take a look in this lens. We'll try. Typically you can't get the lenses apart very easily because they're all bunged up. bunged up, put together quite fiercely. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, these are all thread locked, and now the screw is mounted. What is going on with this? Those screws, the screwdriver locks in nicely, but does not turn. Let's try this one. Oh, maybe it was that size. 00, not just 0. Okay, ruined the screws. Still might be able to undo them though. Yeah, be careful picking the right size screwdriver for the job. What is this going to benefit us? Well, we can take the back part off, and so there we can see that's the zoom motor. You can see it moves that gear there. So that's a geared down motor with little rubbery mount things, so it's all nice and compliant, like so to decouple the noise from the motor. So there's a motor with a little gearbox on it, just standard DC motor, whereas this thing here is a kind of servo thing with 2 coils, and that opens the iris. Just 2 blades, nothing too fancy going on there. There is something we did miss though, the filter, for whether you're outside or not. Maybe this one doesn't have that. Maybe it's just done electronically. You know, a lot of the cameras, it has a little mechanical, and it puts a filter in front of the lens. See though, there's a star-shaped thing there, so I think it will just go to that, and then the center of it is darker, so it's like a built-in ND filter. I think that's what that is. Interesting. So that's all kind of stuck together. Other than taking the aperture blades off, you can't really do much with that. Now, next layer, can we get the housing off of this autofocus part? This might just fall off when you undo enough screws. Oh, look, there's a little bung there. Do we need to undo that? It probably has a screw under it. No, it's just a little bung. Bung. Now we have to take that thing off. Then that will tip back and release these. Oops. Oh yeah, they were clipped. They were clipped. Okay, so this is the same system that we've seen before, that there's not much information about. A Honeywell special autofocus sensor. Maybe it's a secret thing because it's special machine vision stuff, is closely guarded secret from military weapons and the like. Don't know, because it is a different type of board to the other stuff. It's got a flex attached there onto that thing. Oh yeah, and depending on the zoom, is it? No, depending on the focus, it adjusts that to compensate. Yeah, so this will shine the light out and receive it back. Maybe it all happens from that. And then adjust the focus. And you can see there is a sensing device there. That disc rotates, and I don't know if it's a variable resistor or just something that acts like an encoder. So it knows the position of the lens, and then adjusting that accordingly. Sends out a beam, receives something back. So it's got switch, auto manual switch, the power supply, and it says error end encoder ground. And I think that thing there is the encoder. Where do those other wires go? I don't know where that red and black one goes. Yeah, we're gonna seriously take this thing apart. Oh, okay. The black and red ones are for the motor. AFM, autofocus motor, of course. And then, yeah, encoder and encoder ground, the blue and white ones. Okay, well that's pretty easy. And then this assembly is just screwed onto the lens. Does it just come off? No, there must be something else to it. Oh, there's another screw in there. Yeah, autofocus assembly. I'm guessing in the A1 camera, there's just a plastic panel over that. And this bit here is not included. I wonder if this was expensive, so not used in cheaper versions. Would that be a reason? It's the motor that drives the focus, that encodery thing, and this special transmitter receiver doofy. Oh, little slit thing. Ah, look at that. Another thing that we need to put under the microscope. Alright, we'll get it back. Okay, let's have a look at this little thingy. Guessing that's just some kind of linear CCD kind of thing. Maybe it's a bunch of emitters and receivers. Oh, they have tiny little lenses over that. Could be a bunch of IR emitters and receivers, and they do things. It does look like it's kind of going down a tunnel, doesn't it? Well, there you go. That's the autofocus transmitter and receiver, perhaps. Pretty interesting. Very interesting. Alright, I think we made enough of a mess of that. There's a look at the National A2. It's not just A2, it's a video camera, WVP-A2N. Standalone video camera back before video cameras had VCRs built into them. Stay tuned next time. Presumably we're going to take apart the A1. Maybe that'll be a quick video because we've kind of done most of it here. But yeah, I have to find it first. We'll have a look at an A1 and see how the lenses and things differ when there's no autofocus involved. We'll see. I'll see how I feel at the time. Anyway, there's the A2 camera. Pretty interesting. Catch you next time.